My next guest, very well known when it comes to artists in the bailiwick. She's been beautifully capturing the spirit of our islands for more than 20 years, and her new exhibition, Looking Deeper, is no exception to this rule. In the studio with me is Rosanne Guille. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Claire.
Now, tell us a little bit about, you have a new exhibition, which is starting at the beginning of August, which, can you believe, is coming up really soon. It feels like the summer is marching on very quickly throughout all of this rain. And that is just in a few days' time. Tell me a little bit about this exhibition.
It was back in January that I decided to go ahead with another exhibition. I just had an exhibition with a friend from art college called Deborah Grice, and I just thought, what am I going to do next? Every time I have an exhibition, I kind of think, what am I going to do next? What's the next project? So back in January, I thought I'll contact the National Trust and see if they've got any space available in their gallery, which is at the Folk Museum. And they did. They had a space for August and September. So I thought, right, I'm going to take that and give myself a 6-month deadline and, get out there and carry on painting what I love.
So tell me a little bit about what we can expect. It's a solo exhibition. What will be on display? Okay,
so I'm a wildlife painter, but more now into seascapes and landscapes on plein air. I have to apologise, I can't say my S's because I've got a brace on my teeth, so apologies for that. I get out with my easel and I paint from life. So I might set up my easel on a beach or on the headland or wherever really inspires me. I've done a lot of painting in Alderney and in Herm and in Sark as well. So a third of my exhibition will be Sark. There's about 60 paintings altogether, the ones that I'm most pleased with out of probably hundreds of paintings that I've done over the last 6 months. I do a lot of sketchbook work. Everything that I do goes onto my social media, so you can see that, but you'll be able to see them in the flesh from next Tuesday for 6 weeks.
When you set up outside, how long does it take you from when you arrive to when you sort of leave and think, I'm happy with that?
That's a good question, actually. I try to not take too long because obviously the weather is changing when you're out painting. You've got considerations like the light and the tide, especially around here where the tide is either going out or coming in. If I'm doing a seascape, obviously within half an hour to an hour things look quite different, so I try to work really quickly. And for me, that works best because I can respond to my environment. I can look at the light, I can look at the colours, I can, have a sort of an intention of what I want to portray about what I'm looking at. So, speed is of the essence with my work. So,
and when you go back to your studio, do you look at that and then do you touch things up? Do you change it, or is that it?
Well, I tend to, every painting is different, so I tend to go back home, sort of have a cup of coffee, think about what I've done, look at it again after a short while, maybe put it away and not look at it again for a few weeks, even if I think, that it's no good. Or so every painting is different. But with this exhibition, I feel like I've got in my groove really with what I want to do. The last exhibition was more studio paintings, much more considered, whereas this is much more from a kind of a response to being in nature, in the landscape, and just, choosing subjects that really inspire me and get me fired up. And some days you go out there and you just don't feel it, and you kind of think, oh, I'll just go home and I'll try another day, and things. I've got 2 teenage kids, so life's a bit manic. So I feel I'm happiest with this exhibition that I'm about to put on. It's really about what I love about the islands. So
when you are out, do you attract attention? You know, do you find you get people coming up to you, oh, what are you doing there? You know, and start talking to you?
And it's lovely that people feel that they can come up and sort of start chatting to you. And I have met some really lovely people in the last 6 months, and it's all part of being a plein air artist. I've had a shirt printed with my name and my social media on, just in case people feel that they can't speak to me and don't want to interrupt, you know, because it's quite a sort of, I would say, a nerve-wracking thing to do, to stand in the middle of a street when there's people walking past you. It's a bit like, you know, the street festival. My daughter's been singing at the street festival, and, you know, I take my hat off to people that perform, you know, arts in public. It is quite nerve-wracking, because when it's not going well, when you're having a bad day and you're producing really quite, you know, work that you don't really want to put on show, it can be a little bit nerve-wracking. But, you know, I've been doing it for, 30-odd years now, mostly outdoors, mostly in all weathers, and, you know, you get used to it after a while. Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? Especially with the street festival. You think, you know, I was wandering through town yesterday and seeing some of the performers, and, you know, you sort of slow down, don't you? But lots of people carry on walking, lots of people stop and watch. Yeah, and it must be like, you know...
It's been lovely. It's been lovely to watch all of that. And my parents came over from Sark to see my daughter performing, and town has just got such a lovely atmosphere at the moment with all of the singing and performing that's going on. I was actually painting on the harbour about 3 days ago, painting, where was I? I was on the end of Crown Pier and chatting to a fisherman and painting, and you could hear the music sort of wafting over the harbour, and it was just lovely being down there.
How does this exhibition compare to some of your previous work?
I would say it's quite different, because when I was living in Sark, I had a little gallery in the Avenue, and I used to paint in watercolour. So when I moved to Guernsey 4 years ago, it hardly seems possible that I've been here 4 years, but I broke out of that, you know, only using watercolour and being very kind of traditional with that. I started using all different mediums, pastels, oils, and trying to find my voice, I would say. So this exhibition really is where I want to be, what I want to be doing, and I think it shows that I'm settled and I'm happy, and, you know, hopefully people will connect through the feeling that they get when they look at my work. That's kind of what I hope for.
In the studio with me is Rosanne Guille. We will be talking a little bit more about her work, her upcoming exhibition. I've got a 2024 calendar in front of me as well, which we'll talk about. Can't believe we're starting to think about next year already. In the studio with me is Rosanne Guille. There is an exhibition coming up from the 1st of August. It's running at the National Trust Folk and Costume Museum at Saumarez Park. It's going to be running through until the 8th of September. And we've been talking a little bit about the exhibition, but I also want to touch on, Rosanne, a calendar that you brought in for 2024. I almost can't believe we are looking ahead to 2024. Do you do a calendar every year?
I do, yeah. When I was in Sark, and I opened my gallery in Sark, probably 8 years ago now, 7 or 8 years ago, I started, you know, getting my work together, the stuff that I was most pleased with, and putting it together in a calendar. So, yeah, I think I've produced one every year for about 7 years now, and they're for sale in various places in town and online. So, yeah, I basically got this one done to sell in my exhibition, because it's all the work that I've done in the last 6 months, and just to give people an idea of what they can see and what they can buy as well, because everything will be for sale in the exhibition as well.
How do you decide what goes into a calendar? Because you can only have about 12. Well, you've got some little pictures at the side here as well.
Yeah, so. I've basically tried to spread it out evenly, because I've done a lot of painting, like I said, in Alderney and in Sark and some in Herm. So I've chosen, you know, 2 or 3 pictures from each island and tried to sort of the ones that I'm most pleased with. I mean, it's so subjective art, and what some people love, other people don't get at all. So I hope that there's something for everybody in there. It's my oil paintings that I'm most sort of working on at the moment, that I've put all together. So.
Are you a critic of yourself when you do put things together? And because you talked earlier about whether you'll do a piece and then you'll say sometimes you put it away because you don't like it. Is that a thing where you become your own worst critic?
You do, and it's one of the hardest parts of being an artist, I think, because you're in your own company for a lot of the time. I've been really, really lucky because I've got to know a few artists that like working outdoors, like Fiona Richmond and like Maggie LeConte, whose exhibition finishes today, I think. So it's lovely to go out with other artists as well and get their take on what you're doing. So I always like to hear what people have to say about my work, whether it's good or bad. I think it helps to keep you grounded and to keep you striving for whatever it is that we strive for as artists. It's all sort of subjective, and I'm happy in the way that the direction that my work is taking. But I do give myself a really hard time, and my husband will vouch for that. He's long suffering, and he sees me when I'm at my lowest points, and there've been a few in the last 6 months, because you're always questioning, why am I doing it, what am I doing, is it really what I should be doing? I tend to overthink. So
What about these days with thoughts of AI coming in? We've been talking about it. There's been a lot in the media about it, taking over the filming industry, but for arts as well, I can imagine that's quite a threat in terms of AI being able to kind of mimic different styles.
It's a really tricky one, and I've thought a bit about this, not a huge amount. I did photography A-level at college when I was doing my foundation, and we learnt a lot about, back in the 1800s when photography first came in and artists felt threatened, and, was it going to replace art? Was it going to mean that artists were out of a job? And for me, it feels like a bit like history repeating itself. I feel that the human condition and the human spirit, in a way, it can't be replicated, and that, I feel, is what I try to put into my work. It's not just copying a photograph. It's more about your personal human reaction to what you're seeing. So I'm not worried about it. I feel maybe that's a bit arrogant, but I'm not personally too worried about AI encroaching on what I do and what other artists do.
And in terms of going to see an exhibition, you've got your calendar, you've got, as you say, a social media site as well, because social media plays a big part in art nowadays as well. But what's the difference of actually going to an exhibition?
That's a really good question as well. I think you can't compare the two. I think, being in front of a painting, you're obviously in front of where you're standing, where the artist stood to paint it. So you see the brush marks, you see, fingerprints sometimes. It's like, I was really lucky to go to New York last June for my honeymoon, and I saw a Monet, and it just blew me away. It was just like, wow, this is an actual Monet painting in front of me, and it brought me to tears. It was quite moving. So, from that point of view, I mean, I get really emotional anyway about most things, but to see a painting in the flesh, I think most people will agree you can't compare it at all to having a screen in front of you.
Just remind us then when your exhibition is, what people can expect from it.
Okay, well, it's roughly 60 paintings, all done from life in the last 6 months. There are a few older pieces as well, but the 60 are the main group of paintings that will be for sale. They are fairly small sized because I work outdoors, I don't work too big. They can expect a lot of cheery colours, bright colours, a lot of light. I try to get atmosphere and light into my work, and they are all of local views and local recognisable, hopefully, views that people will have seen before. And and I just really hope that people enjoy seeing my work that I've been doing.
Does the weather play a mark on whether you can go out? Like we had a daylight yesterday. It's starting to get a little bit brighter today. But do you think, well, I'm not going to go out today because actually it's not going to give me the right light that I need?
Not at all. I feel that being a plein air artist, you have to take the good with the bad, and a lot of artists that I see, stick an umbrella over their head, or I don't do that. I tend to just get the sun cream on, or, wrap up in another jumper and put my coat on and just go out. And I find all weathers are inspiring, and I particularly love a storm. I think maybe it's the Saki in me, but I love to be out in a howling gale, and just the challenge of, strapping everything to my back and just, trying to pin paper to a board while it's, wanting to tear off. And I just, that's what really fires me up, gets me going, is a good bit of weather.
Love it. Well, artist Rosanne Guille, thank you so much for joining us today. The exhibition will run from the 1st of August for 6 weeks. It's going to be at the National Trust Folk and Costume Museum at Saumarez Park, so that runs through until the 8th of September.